everybody. Well, this is how can I put this? A public service announcement. Except it's not for the public, it's for the people who own Delta Integrales here in the USA. But it is a safety announcement because it's about brakes. So I'm trying. What it is that when you own an orphan car, and you can only buy parts from Europe because nobody lists anything like that here, and nobody will even try and help you. So you got to go out there and search on your own. So I figured I just got to save you a little time because I did a bunch of searching trying to cross-reference part numbers, and this is what I got, and they kind of worked out. What it is, we're going to start off with the brakes. The first thing is, here is the brake rotor from the Delta Integrale. This one's pretty chowed, but it's the reason why I'm replacing the brakes. But I pulled it off to guarantee that this one will fit. Same thing with the rear. And now, what I did was, I looked on the internet and I ran every single part number I could find on the Delta Integrale. And one of them came up. And the one that came up was quite interesting. We actually had that car imported into the States. And what was it? Well, this is the front rotor for a 2014, what was it? Right? Okay, the 2014. Yeah, the 2014 Fiat 500 Abarth. And it's a Raybestos 981771 rotor. This was the high performance rotor they said on Rock Auto. So I got that. It was cheap. It was like 30 something dollars, I think. And I'm looking at it going, well, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I bought them. Worst comes to worst, I'll send them back. No harm, no foul. But I got it in. And I says, cool. And in that same order, I also ordered this right here. This is a Brembo rotor. What I did is I looked on the internet, cross-referenced everything, and I came up. And this one actually did not come up on Rock Auto. I had to put the actual Brembo search in there. And the Brembo number is 08363610. And what it is that when you pull that up, it's up here, you can pull up a chart and it'll tell you what that rotor fits. That's the front rotor from an X19 or a 128 or 131 of that era. And when I pulled off the rear rotor like this and mashed it up, it's perfect. And I'm sitting there going, all right, this is pretty cool. Now we have the front rotor and the rear rotor, and those are the part numbers. Now what we also have to do is we have to get the brake pads. And when I did the brake pads, I went through every single, section, every single part number I could find for cross-referencing. And then I found it. Now, the car that was here that had the front brake pads for the Delta Integrale was the 1995 Alfa Romeo 164. It says 3-liter V6, but I think they're all 3-liter V6s. But what I got was a dynamic friction set. It's a component kit, which was 15510590001. And the brake pad itself was 1551 0590 00, and the hardware kit that came with this was 340-74022, and everything's right up here. And this is what came. These are the brake pads right here, and they came with sensors. And this is the hardware kit right here. They came with rubber boots, and they came with the bolts with Loctite on it. So when I pulled everything off, I looked at the brake pads, and this is the brake pads for the Delta. The only thing that's different from this brake pad to that brake pad, because I looked everything up, every spring, everything looked good, is the sensor plug. That is the difference. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but what I am going to do is install these things and then figure out how I'm going to make the plug fit this right here, because I'm just going to disassemble it and put it on here or do something. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it, but that's all the brake components you're going to find here in the United States. The only components I did not find were the rear brake pads. Now, if you sit there and go through all your searches, you say, hey, wait a minute, there's websites out there that say this brake pad fits, from the Delta Evolution fits the standard Delta. They do not, because the Delta Evolution, if you cross-reference those, that's a standard Audi Quattro from the 80s and 90s. They're all the same. If you take a look at it, yep, it's the same. You run the part numbers, yep, Audi, Audi 4000 Quattro or Audi 80 or 90 Quattro. That is the exact same brake pad. So you can get them here really cheap. but they are different than the 16 valve and the 8 valves. Now, what you got to do, see right here is the 8 valve brake pad, or the 16 valve and 8 valve brake pad, but this is not the Evo. You have to go through every single website and find out, because you'll see a lot of websites listing one brake pad for the Delta Integrale and one brake pad, for the Evolution. Then you'll see one site exactly opposite doing one brake pad for everything. It's not the case, So I had to order the brake pads from overseas. And you're probably saying, who did I figure out who I wanted to get them from? Well, I went through, and when I was Googling everything, this thing called Tank Barrett came up. Never heard of them. They look like they have a ton of Lancia stuff. And I'm sitting there going, okay, whatever, and I came up with there was like 3 other sites that I looked on there in Europe. And I'm looking at it going, well, whatever. Then I came across a thing that I recognized. And I recognized it from when I used to rally back in the early 2000s. I was rallying at Cosworth, but I used to get Motorsport News. And they used to have an ad in there. I tried looking for through an old one, but I couldn't find it. But it's Walker's Garage. And I looked at it, and then I looked at their prices. They beat everybody for the name brand parts. And the thing is, for a set of Brembo brake pads, I got, £19.50 for a set of Brembo rear brake pads, brand new. And I'm sitting there going, you know what? We're good to go. What's the shipping? FedEx shipping was 37 quid. And so I'm going, what the? It's like, holy shit, But whatever. I said, hey, can you give me a break on do something, for a break on the shipping? And they said, hold on, let me see what I can do. And I said, yeah, we can run down and throw it in the post. It just won't be any tracking on it for like 16 pounds. And I'm sitting there going, all right, good to go. Do it that way. So I bought the pads. They sent it. It came in a week. That's not normal, because I've had stuff sent in the post and it's taken like a month. So that's the whole thing. Now, what you got to do is go to Walker's Garage, because they're a bunch of old rally guys. I would trust them. I mean, I don't get paid for them, but they're a bunch of good dudes over there. Talk to Joel. He's in the parts department. I mean, he'll treat you right, and he'll work with you to get you the best shipping. So if you got to go to Europe to get your Delta parts, go to Walker's Garage. And it's, what is it? It's, where is it, right? It's www.walkers, WALKERSGARAGE, walkersgarage.com. It's not like the normal British website where it's .co.uk. It's .com. So remember that. All right. First things first. What I'm going to do is I want to show you some of the stuff that I'm doing on the car. I bought some spacers for it to change the wheels over, and I bought some new shock absorbers. It's like the only ones I can find, but I want to show you what I got on there. And let's run over there and let me show you what it is, and just so you can make a decision on whether or not you would want something like that. Here's the strut coilovers that I got for the car. What it is the coilover itself, everything feels really nice. If you run your fingers along the threads for the coilover, there's no burrs. It's pretty decent machining. The finish appears to be it feels nice. I mean, hopefully it'll last. There's a grommet. There's a little tab back here for the grommet for the brake line and brake sensor wire. I have everything loose right now. You have this little locking ring right here, which is adjust the height. Also, you can also adjust the height with this, the spring seat and the spring seat locking ring. Now, what they do, which is kind of odd because I'm not used to it, I'm used to competition coilovers, is they compress this 5 millimeters to stop it from rattling around. I'm so used to what they call a no-load suspension, where you don't have this, you have these two, and you adjust the height through the spring perch and the spring locking ring, and that's how you do it. But it's noisy because it's for a competition car. This isn't, so I have to wrap my head around that. There's only one of the really small thing. It's on the strut top mount that I find annoying, and it's not really annoying, and maybe just a pet peeve. Let's go up and take a look at that. Then we're gonna do the wheel conversion, and I'm gonna show you what I got for wheels. Here we are on the top of the right-hand strut tower. What we have, this is the BC Racing coilover, strut tops. It's aluminum. They do have aluminum to a steel contact, which, Yes, it will increase vibrations. I was almost thinking about pulling this out and putting a rubber donut in here. Not a donut, but how can I put this? A rubber washer inside here, just to lessen the vibrations, because I'm not really racing this car. But it also has a pillow ball mount or a spherical bearing, whatever you want to call it, rose joint. It's a spherical bearing that moves back and forth. It's very good for when you want direct steering, but it does transmit vibrations into the chassis. But that's not, none of this stuff is what I had a problem with. What I had a problem with is this. You see this cap head screw right here? This right here is set at 0 degrees. And if I wanted to go, because they offer 3 degrees of adjustment on this setup. If you want 3 degrees, it only goes 1.5 degrees with this cap head bolt in there. I called them up, all bent out of shape, saying you cut this thing wrong, blah, 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 blah. And they said, use a concentric bolt if you want that much, and that even threw me off. That lit me up even more. But what they didn't tell me is if I bring it to 3 degrees like this, there is another place for this second cap head screw right there. So if you get this, you don't have to call them and tell them you screwed up because it interferes with the strut tower. You just have to put it here. It's not a problem. I think there was nothing in the instructions that said this. And I think that's what makes me the most annoyed with it, because I'm used to having things set equidistant on all parts, especially for the price that I spend for these things. Now, other than that, it all appears to be pretty decent. Let me show you what I'm going to use for a strut wheel or a wheel conversion, and then we'll finish up the video. This right here is the wheel adapter I'm using. And you're probably wondering, okay, why did you pick this? I picked this because it's the thinnest wheel adapter I could find. These come out of Australia by Carroll Technologies. And the greatest thing is they will cut to your hub bore or your center bore for your hub on the car and the center bore on the actual wheel rim. So I told them, I measured the center bore of the rim, which was, I think it was 73 millimeters, and the center bore of the Delta Integrale, I think it was 58.1. So they made the center bore go on, so it'll go onto the hub and won't have any back and forth. It's absolutely concentric. And then a center bore right here for the rim to rest on that. So the lug nuts, the only thing they're doing, they're not trying to center the rim. All they're doing is clamping the rim to this, and the center bore or a center ring, concentric ring, is actually making sure the wheel is fitting exactly centered on this spacer, and which transfers to the center of the hub. I hope you got that. All right, another thing they did, which is actually really cool, is they put in, they specify, what do you want for lug nuts? You want this, anything different or anything like that? And I says, yes. I wanted 12 by 1.5 pitch lug nuts. And they said, well, why do you want that? Because the lug nuts or the wheel lugs on this car is 12 by 1.25, just like a Subaru. But I have a ton of Fords. And the Fords use 12 by 1.5, so I'm going to keep the same lug nuts that I keep with every other car, 12 by 1.5, so they all work. And if I ever need to rob Peter to pay Paul one day, I have it. And you're probably saying, well, how are you going to get these things to stick there if you don't have the lugs to go on there? Well, I bought these. These are just standard, lug conversions for a Subaru. What it is, seeing how Carroll supplies the low profile nuts that goes right on here, I'm going to thread these things in, get the exact diameter or exact distance, cut everything so it goes right in, there's no obstruction, and then tighten it down like this so it doesn't go anywhere. It'll be like a stud conversion. If you have to put the wheel bolts in there, you put the wheel bolts in there, you have to basically either cut the rim to accept the wheel bolts on the other side of the faceplate, or you have to cut the bolts down. And I did not want to do that. That's why I had them send these, and I bought these. So, all right. Let me go down. I'm going to start cutting. I want to cut 4 of these things up so I can figure out exactly what I need for distance, and we'll come back and hopefully the brake pads and rotor and everything is on and bolted in. So, all right, let me go do that, and we will be right back, and I'll show you the rims and what I got. Before I get to cutting up all the studs, I want two things. First thing, I want to make sure I have the right distance of amount above the nut so it doesn't conflict the, how can I put this? When you put everything in there, it doesn't protrude from the adapter so the wheel wobbles around, doesn't get a nice flat face, you know, where it sits on the adapter. And also I want them all to look the same. That's kind of a big deal. So what do I do? Here's the stud right here, 50 mil. Just a washer, stick it down. It goes over those knurlings because that's what I want. I have a Subaru lug nut. I want it flat face down. That's all the way to the end. See how this moves? You want this pushed in all the way like this and then tack it on a couple of sides. That way, when you have your grinding wheel, you can run it down. And we have 3 millimeters above the nut that's going to be attaching the adapter to the wheel hub. This is 2 millimeters. We got a millimeter of clearance. We just don't want it to protrude to make the wheel not fit flush or flat on those adapters. Now, let me tack this thing in, go over there, start cutting everything, and then we can lop off basically 8 mils worth of threads. And because we're going to do 10 millimeters down, it's a 2 millimeter step and 8 millimeters of thread, and I think we're going to be good on all of it. So, all right, let me just put my gear on, weld this up, bring it over to the vise, and start chopping them up. Before I finish putting on the rest of this adapter, here are the studs, or here's one of the studs that I made to go in here to attach this adapter plate to the hub and brake rotor. Now, you saw me cut the thing off, and you saw me make slits inside here. You're probably wondering why I made the slit inside here. Remember, you have to back off the nut like this to make the slit because the cutting blade is a round, so you have to make a slot like this, so you have to run it right through. I did that so I could fit my screwdriver in there, and I can turn the stud into the hub assembly. It's just for ease, because trying to turn it all the way in with your hand is just not going to do it. But this way, it turns it in. But it's because you don't need very much torque. You need very little torque on it. You just need to set everything. Also, what I did was I had to go back and trim them down a little bit, because I went around like this with my caliper, and just to make sure they weren't protruding, and you got to do that. A couple were protruding, so I just went down there and I brought it down, because this is a flat edge right here, and you're trying to make sure the wheel rim fits absolutely flat to this adapter. Now, also, the measurements of these studs that pretty much turned out to be were 40 mil? Looks like 41 millimeter from here to the end. And it spins. So there's no the back part is not hanging up on the hub assembly. Or yes, on the hub assembly. Now, also, I want to show you what I do to measure. If I had these, I would have probably not done these studs, but I didn't have these, and I ordered the studs at the exact same time. Now, this is a good little tip or a trick that you might have. This right here, this is the metal section, the piece of stainless steel that's in windshield wipers. Now, when you throw your wipers away, take them apart and keep this. You want to know why? Well, you can put a piece of some pliers like this. You got a 90-degree thing, and it's stiff, so it actually picks up little nuts, picks up your wrench when you're down in the engine bay, and it also, you can sit there, put it in like this, bring it out. That is the back of the hub. Use your thumbnail to the back of the hub, which is right here. is 34 millimeters to this point right here on the edge. So just say 35 millimeters. I cut these a little long, yeah, so big deal. It gives me, if I screw up, guess what? I have extra threads that I can mess around with. So what it is now is I can just put this in, screw this all the way down, like that. Nothing is contacting the hub. Now I can torque everything. These studs are not going to move when you torque these wheels. And you take your caliper to make sure. Every single one. Nothing is touching. So the wheel rim will fit flush on this. All right, let's go to the brake pads. I want to show you what I'm going to do to make the brake pads work with the system in this car. Here's the 164 pad. What we have here is a brand new pad. Yay! But we have a 2-wire system for the brake pad wear indicator. This is the Delta. It's a single wire system. What does this do? What this does is when the brake pad gets down to a certain level, this contacts the rotor, grounds out, light turns on. There we go. All right, what this one does, it sends power into one side and comes out the other when the brake pad gets down to a certain distance in between the two. The brake pad, the rotor contacts, makes a contact, the light comes on. Sometimes, I'm not really sure if the 164 system actually did this. I think some of the Volkswagen systems did. What happens is you have current going through one side, and there's a slight, how can I put this? A high resistance circuit being made between these two wires, so it tells the system that this is connected. And then when it gets down to a certain point where it makes full contact, that's when the light turns on. Now, I'm not sure if the 164 did that or not, but the only thing we're concerned with is one wire on this to go into the connector on the Delta. So what am I going to do? Well, this is a really long piece of wire, so I'm just going to cut this to the length of this so it will fit on. And then we have to pull this connector. This connector will come out if you have I picked this up off of Amazon. These are you always see them for doing electrical connectors. Inside here, I can't see, even I can barely see it. There's a little tab. Force it down again. There we go. There's a tab inside here you have to push down. And then to put it back in, you have to raise that tab back up so it catches on a clip that's inside here. We also have to pull apart or spread these little connector pieces right here so we can put the new wire on, crimp them, and then put them back in. So let me pull this apart and we can get on to putting the brake pads back in. Remember, you want to save this weather connector to put it back on the lines that are going into this. One good thing, these are from Snap-on. Oh, actually, they're Blue Point. But they have a great little gripper thing right here, for the pliers. And what I do is hold that like this. I doubt if Craftsman sell these things anymore, but it's a really small channel lock. And then you just pry these apart. Really easy. Yeah, see, that's out. That's the other part of the connector or the sealer. And then you get on here, you put it on this side. Again, this right here is where I peeled it off. You know what? There's stress cracks right here, so I'm going to solder my wires in there. Let me go down and grab my soldering gun. Come back up. We'll solder that, and then we'll put the seal. What do they call it? An amp seal or whatever? Back in with the wires and bring this and crimp it around that. So let me go grab my soldering gun so I can put this together, cut those for the brake pad, and put it back in. There it is. The connector up pretty good, so it'll actually go into the other one. Single wire, right about the same length. Doesn't look that bad. I'm going to go compress the caliper, and I'm going to put the caliper back on, and then we're going to finish up the episode because I'm going to show you the wheels that I did this for. Well, this is what I did it all for. I had these BBS RSs kicking around because I got a Volkswagen and I broke the Volkswagen for parts, and actually I bought the Volkswagen for these wheels, you know, and I sold all the parts and I basically came out with the wheels. But I think they look the business on this car. I was never too thrilled about the original wheels. I have friends that love those wheels, but I'm just not a fan. But these things look serious. I just think they look cool. They're filthy, but they look cool. Yeah, and the tire diameter was pretty good, and there's almost brand new tires on these things. And I can't wait to try them out. Of course, all the brakes fit. I was kind of concerned a little bit about the width of the pad, but it fit perfectly. Just compress the caliper, and that's it. I'm going to go do the rears. I know the brake pads are going to fit on there. I have to just guarantee that the rotors will fit and everything works. And then we're going to go back and I'll finish up everything. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's yeah, let me go do that and we'll finish up the episode. Before I end the video, I want to show you the rear brake setup. You have 2 bolts right here. This is right there, and this is the locating pin for the wheels, which doesn't work. And sometimes you can't get them off, so just hold the wrench like that, and they pop right. That is what it looks like. Just a centering pin. And this right here comes right out, no problem. What you have here also is a spacer from the factory. You want to put this on because the other spacer, I'm not really sure if it's going to hit this, but if the factory had it this way, that's the way I think it should be done. Also, you're going to need a set of pliers, because back here, what we have, they aren't used very much anymore, but they just have basically, how can I put this, almost like a split pin, but it's a spring split pin. Pull this out. You got to pull the second one out also. Here's the second one. Then you push it down or up, whichever way you're going to do it. There's your piston. Everything else is pretty much standard, but what I wanted to show you, piece of 1/4 inch steel. And just keep doing this until you compress the entire thing in. Brembo pads didn't come with them, but you're going to have to reuse these clips. There are slots on both sides. Both pads have them, just like right here. And you're trying to get this point and this point on those tabs. Kind of annoying, but... there it is. New brake pads are in. This is all set. I'm not going to torque it because when I get it back down, I don't have any of my brake grease around, and I don't have my caliper paint because I want to kind of clean these things up, paint them. So none of this is torqued, but it's on there. So when I bring it down, I can put it on my lift and get everything cleaned up and do it that way. So that's it. That's a small thing on there. On the front brakes, I'll go into that. It's just like an Audi or a Volkswagen or a Ford. They're all the same, you know, so pretty easy. All right, let's end up the video. Done. What do you think of the BBS wheels? I think they look pretty cool. I like them. I like them better than the originals. I'll save the originals and all that, but it's just one of those things. I just like the way the RSs look. Other than that, there's really nothing else. Let me go over a little bit to get the brakes off, or to do the brakes. What I had was in the fronts, a 19 millimeter to pull the carriers off. You need 2 wrenches, a 13 and a 15, to get the caliper off of the carriers. And you need a C-clamp to compress the piston. On the pins that hold the rotor on and the locating pin for the rim, that's a 12 millimeter. At least it is on mine. You never know what it actually is on other cars. You never know if people replace them or whatever. On the back, you had a 17 millimeter to pull the carrier off. A 17 millimeter wrench, and it's really difficult to get a socket in there. I can't see about getting a socket, so I just didn't even bother. Just put a wrench on it and pulled it off. Now the slides to hold in there, all you need is a pair of pliers to pull the cotter pin or the little pin that's inside there, and just pop them out. No problem. Compressing the piston, I used 2 pry bars. These two pry bars, pushed them together after I turned the piston in, because the e-brake is integrated with the caliper, just like an Audi. But the thing is, the Audis have a cutout where you can use a compression tool, which you can just put in there and it spins it right in, and it's easy. This was annoying. But I got it done. 1/4 inch tool steel, that's all it is, And I used the pry bars to push it in after I turned it. Fairly simple. And make sure you align that piston with the actual, basically the pins on the brake pads in the back. Goes right in, no problem. I didn't tighten any torques up or anything because I want to get everything downstairs. I'm probably going to pull it back off, clean the calipers, paint them and stuff like that. But you know what? I can't even get the car out of the barn for probably another 2.5 months because there's so much ice and snow out there. I just did this because I'm in limbo and a lot of other things, I just got my stuff in for the R5 for building the ECU, so I got to do a lot of studying on how I'm going to do that. Now, suspension-wise, the BC Racing coilovers, you know what? If you want me to give a review on them, I will, but that won't be for, 2 to 3 months minimum, and I'm gonna have to drive it a little bit. But I got those for the reason because of this. And this is one thing. This is like a helpful hint on not to buy. This right here is a Konian. I thought they were Konian eye box. I'm not sure what the sports springs were, but this was meant, and I got it off of eBay from a guy in Canada, I think it was New Brunswick or something like that. And he's from Belgium, and he swore up and down these would fit. Mike, I asked him, do they fit? Do they fit? Yes, they fit. They fit. Okay, great. So I asked him, I said, can you put them in 2 boxes? Because it was just, it's probably 2/3 the cost of shipping. He said, yeah, no problem. So I bought the struts, the springs, and the tops, for him. He sent them. He took the strut tops didn't show up, and I, contacted him, and he said, well, no, I needed those, so. And seeing how I split it into 2 boxes for you and saved you money, I kept them. Yeah. Well, that's about 80% of every single dealing I've had in Canada has happened that way. So just a helpful safety tip, just be very careful dealing with everybody in Canada, because I'm going to tell you right now, unfortunately, I haven't had a very good experience, Now, England, on the other hand, I've had 2 bad, stuck bad in my mouth type, deals, bad taste in my mouth, but all the rest have been phenomenal. I can't say anything better than the people that I've dealt with in England, especially the rally guys, the greatest people, and those are the, I have no problem buying from England. That's the reason why I'll gladly recommend Walker's Garage, because, they were in motorsport news, they were rally guys. You know what? I definitely would suggest them. Now, the BC Racing coilovers, like I said before, kind of hesitant, not really, but all the stuff that I read around that they were built in Australia. Australia, very high rally competition type of culture there. That's why I bought them. Then when they showed up, they were made in Taiwan. I wish you said that. Then I'd be more on the fence of buying them. But you know what? Only time will tell. Let's see how they work. I'll give a review if anybody wants it. But that's later. The adapters were actually made in Australia. I have no problem with that. But they did say they had in their ad that it included lug nuts. Be advised, they don't include the lug nuts, and they don't tell you that. They show you it to you, so you think you're buying it, but you're going to have to buy them. It's not a big deal, but the thing is, I just don't like when people show something, you're expecting to get it, and it's not. It's irrelevant. They're only, lug nuts, what are they, $20, $25, whatever. Okay, who cares? I don't really care. But if you show a picture, please, tell me if it's not included, it's not included. And when something shows up, then I have to waste like 3 weeks to get the lug nuts in, And that's just the biggest thing. It wastes time, But other than that, I'll complete my bitching. I mean, other than that, those adapters are beautifully made. They're really nicely made, But let's see. Yeah, that's about it. Besides the soldering iron and a couple other things and the studs and all that stuff, hopefully it's all going to work out pretty well. I can't wait to drive it after I get it aligned, and see how it goes down the road. Then I might quarter balance it. I'm not really sure. I don't have a set of scales right now, but I'm looking to get some. But other than that, thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. Got to work on that little R5 right there. Get that ECU going. Yeah, heck, pretty excited about that. Pretty intimidated. But hey, what do you expect from a hillbilly? All right. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for showing up. I hope this helped out. Okay. Remember, you can do any of this. You can. Trust me. You can do this. All right. Bye now.